Hey everyone, Mirage and Burner here, and welcome back to another episode of the Saloon Podcast. Today's episode is going to be not today, today's episode is going to be very bizarre because we're essentially heading into uncharted territory. And by uncharted territory, I mean we're talking about my childhood. And my childhood is Thomas the Tank Engine. Now, you're probably wondering, what is it about Thomas the Tank Engine that you're going to talk about specifically? What is there to talk about?
Lots, actually.
A boatload of things. And that's no exaggeration either. There's a lot to cover.
I haven't seen the show a lot when I was a kid either, but even I still have some things I can talk about it, so it should be fun.
Yeah. But anyways, we're here to talk about the good things regarding the show, the bad things, and other miscellaneous things. But let's talk about the thing that everyone's worked up about right now. And that, being the new season for Thomas that was just revealed. Season 25, All Engines Go. Instantaneously, you can tell right off the bat that they're really, really aiming this for a very young demographic. And while that's all fine and good, the way how they're going about it is, let's just make this a brain-dead, hyperactive children's show. Let's make this a Chuggington. Let's make this a Paw Patrol. And I'm like, no. This is absolutely terrible. They've made Thomas sound younger. They have the characters jumping and bouncing off the railroad tracks. There are literal loop-de-loops. I don't know why they have loop-de-loops out of all things is beyond me. It's totally not like this isn't Sonic the Hedgehog or anything.
It makes the ROM-hack Sonic a very useful engine, very funny in hindsight.
Yeah, but anyways, yeah, the show is very... I don't really have very many... I don't really have any high hopes for this new season, mainly because of the fact that you can already tell that it's going to be a show, that has nothing to do with morals, character development, or anything like that. Now, I know there are some people out there that are going to be like, but Mirage, you can't judge a show this early on. We haven't got to see all the other episodes, let alone the first one. Well, yeah, I get that, but this is Mattel we're talking about. And considering what Mattel has already done with Bubba or Big World, Big Adventures, considering how disappointing that was, I'm not going to be surprised if it ends up being terrible. So for those of you out there who are going to say, oh, we don't know that yet, I'm not going to say I don't know. I have a pretty good feeling that it's a pretty bad feeling that it's going to be very poorly made.
Mm-hmm.
Or very poorly executed. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, and it's sort of following the Camp Coral, Teen Titans Go, and I hate to say it, but Sonic movie trope of adapting something that doesn't need to be adapted. Also,
Yep.
Well, at least in Sonic movie initially, I guess. So, taking what made the original series work and trying to improve upon it or try to reach a new demographic with it almost never ends well. Camp Coral has been absolutely slammed by old fans of SpongeBob. The Sonic movie had to get a complete redesign because it just looked so hideous. And the Thomas fan base, is not very happy with this new animation style.
Not at all. No. And they're not just not happy with the animation style, they're generally just not happy with the direction that it's going in.
Because
They're oh yeah.
it feels less like Thomas and more like SpongeBob. And while SpongeBob is great, especially the older seasons, it doesn't fit a show like Thomas.
I was
Because
gonna say it doesn't even feel like SpongeBob. As it's more like Paw Patrol and Chuggington, and those are just essentially, like I said before, brain dead and mindless children's
I
shows
guess I
that
should
don't.
probably reiterate then, like
No,
2010's SpongeBob, modern SpongeBob, before Steven Hillenburg came back, and
yeah,
yeah, back when that was a thing, that was actually brain dead
yeah,
for the most part.
it's
Anyway, there were some good
basically
things.
like that, and it's just all revolved around. It just all revolves around Thomas now. We don't get to focus on any of the other characters. They even say this, I think, in the trailer. They say that that Thomas is the hero in every single episode, and that the other characters aren't really going to get any time to get any development or anything like that, or teach you any important morals. Which brings me to why I think the original series is great. In the first episode, Thomas and Gordon, Thomas essentially pokes fun at Gordon for being lazy, and because of that, Gordon gets the sneaky idea, or the sneaky and ingenious idea, to, well, pull the coaches without Thomas being coupled from them. So while Thomas is still coupled, Gordon immediately pulls out of the station with Thomas still attached to the coaches. And so Gordon just ends up, thundering out of the station, and Thomas already feels exhausted and tired because of the fact that he's not used to the speed that Gordon goes at. So as a result, this teaches Thomas a lesson to not poke fun at Gordon, and he and Gordon become good friends. Either that, or just Thomas learns his lesson, from what I remember.
hmm
Edward is another good example. He goes through a bunch of different character trials, but one important one that stuck out to me the most, from what I remember, was that Edward had to save James from an accident, and he had to get a rope and have his drivers attach the rope to one of James's buffers, and so that it'll stop him from going anywhere. And they finally end up coming to a stop because of Edward's drivers wrapping the rope around James's buffer. And it was, you could tell that there was character development and stuff,
hmm
and trials that characters had to go through, things like that. And
Yeah.
it really made Thomas what it was. Another important and interesting thing that I'd like to mention, and this is only in the David Mitten era of Thomas, but basically, what they did in that era is that they'd always position the camera either really low to the ground or away from the characters' faces, so that way all you'd see is a train, because at first and foremost, that's what they are. That's why I'm not okay with Thomas and all the other characters bouncing around and hopping off the rails and just jumping. I hate it. It
hmm
feels so unnatural, and it just makes it feel like another Chuggington. That's why I also hate the silly little gestures that they introduced in like seasons like 22 and 3, or whatever came prior to those. I hate it. It so it's so illogical. It
hmm
doesn't make any sense. So yeah, I don't like any of that. Any of that stuff that they
Right.
included, because they're essentially just trying to turn it, like I said, into another Chuggington and Paw Patrol, and it's making these children just become really, really, really. I don't want to say dumb, but just uneducated, because of the
Because
fact that they're not learning anything.
yeah, because young children, especially those in like their earlier years, are very, very vulnerable to these kinds of information. And telling them in a very realistic, calming, and natural way can actually get information to them better. And that's why Thomas has stuck around for so many people. Even when they're adults, they can still watch the show and still get what they're trying to say. And
Right, children are incredibly impressionable,
right.
so
And
for you to use the original seasons of Thomas as an example for them, to improve upon their mistakes and learn right from wrong is, great because it's actually teaching them something that's important.
mm-hmm. And
They're
it actually
learning life lessons.
and it's very natural, it's very calming. It isn't in your face, but it also is very subtle too. And
Yeah, none
it's
of the characters come off as being obnoxious either. They're all done by a singular narrator, and the narrator has a really, as Werner said, calm and relaxing voice that people, like. They like the narrator. It feels, you know, uh, peaceful.
yeah. And
Without the narrator and all the characters having their own voices, it's not necessarily bad, but that depends on whether or not the characters have voices that properly suit them, or characters that have overly obnoxious voices that don't really sound right at all.
right.
An example of this would be in, when they first started using CGI for Thomas. When they started doing that, the characters had these really over exaggerated and obnoxious voices that kind of suited them, but just didn't sound right. And they
But
also came off as being incredibly annoying to listen to.
but now that doesn't sound
Personally,
as
that's
bad
not my
anymore,
cup.
does it?
With the narrator, no.
With the CGI being about what it could have been with the animation.
Wait, come again?
Uh, the um the CGI stuff doesn't seem as bad now with the reboot, does it?
Well, yeah, the newest reboot, All Engines Go, makes Bwubba look like the Railway series. It makes it look like the original seasons in comparison. But
Yeah, and like even when the show was in CG, it still had a decent structure. Like, sure, it may have looked a little uncanny at parts, and the voices might have been a little bit more obnoxious, but it still kept the spirit of the original series alive
to an extent,
to an extent. Yes.
it honestly did. It lacked the charm of like the actual, you know, uh, train models that were used in the original, like 11, 12 seasons.
Yeah, but even still, like when we figured out, when we know that it could have turned out like all engines go, yeah, it doesn't seem as bad now, does it?
No, but it doesn't mean it's any
It does.
better.
No.
It's still a really bad outcome, regardless.
Yeah.
But this is what we've regressed into.
Yeah, children's media has just kind of regressed into being funny jokes and not really having all the timeless stuff. You might
Exactly.
call us boomers if you want, but we think that older children's media is actually a lot more powerful and can be a lot more useful in modern day, considering that children's have kids have lower attention spans. Like having something like Classic Thomas there to encourage good morals is something I definitely recommend. And even if you're an adult who is just wanting something a little nostalgic or, something that's timeless, I still recommend giving the original series a bit of a watch if you can, because they're actually still really decent even to this day.
They're not just decent, they're great. And
Yeah,
they're great because another thing about Thomas I don't believe I've mentioned is that Thomas isn't just a kid's show. It's a show for everyone.
yeah.
That's the thing about Thomas that nobody really seems to, nobody at Mattel seems to understand anymore, is that Thomas was for everyone.
It can be
And
enjoyed by anyone of any age.
yes, and I say that because it appeals to kids because of characters like Thomas, Percy, Toby, and Edward, who are all kind, uh, kind, sweet and approachable. They're and characters that you can just kind of relate to. Uh, and for teenagers, they use Thomas as a comfort zone and also as a way to reminisce on, the old show that they used to watch as a kid. For in really dark and serious times that they're in,
Hmm.
and adults relate to it because once again they also reminisce on how good Thomas used to be, and not only that, they marvel and just completely look in awe at the gorgeous scenery that Thomas has.
Like,
That's why Thomas caters to everyone.
yeah, even if you're like, if you're anyone of any age, I think we still recommend giving the show a look, especially the classic seasons. And that's
I'd
why,
say seasons 1 through 11 are worth watching.
yeah, they look good, they sound good, it's very relaxing, it has a nice tone, it teaches good morals. What more could you want?
Indeed. So, yeah, overall, Thomas back then was great, but now it just regressed into something that's absolutely horrible. But should that stop us from being able to enjoy the classic series and all the things that the Thomas fans are doing? No, not at all.
Mm-mm.
It shouldn't. Just because Thomas has regressed because of the things that Mattel has did, it shouldn't prevent us from being able to enjoy what Thomas was initially.
And that's why it still has a fan base even to this day. And all
Yeah,
you Thomas fans out there, young and old, we respect the heck out of you guys.
definitely. Anyways, I believe that's all we have to say regarding the matter.
Yep,
If you all enjoyed this episode of the Saloon Podcast with Burner and I, stay tuned for whatever the next episode might be. We'll see you next time.
take care, everyone.